Welcome to the Thoughtful Leader podcast. My name is Ben Brearley. I'm a leadership coach and the founder of Thoughtful Leader. The Thoughtful Leader podcast is all about short, sharp leadership advice because thoughtful leadership is good leadership. This is episode 257 of the Thoughtful Leader podcast, and it's all about when should you get out of your comfort zone? So this is an interesting question, and I wanted to discuss it today because sometimes there's people who say you should always be out of your comfort zone because that's when you're learning. I actually have a different opinion, and I want to pinpoint some of these areas where I think you should get out of your comfort zone as a leader. So let's get into this episode right now. Now, I've had this episode, Getting Out of Your Comfort Zone, for quite a while on my list of topic ideas. Then the other day, I was listening to some short reflections on the Waking Up app. I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. And the Waking Up app is a podcast about meditation and mindfulness by a person called Sam Harris. I recommend you checking it out if that's what you're into. It's a really good one. I've been using it for a couple of years now. So on that app and in the show notes page, the link will be thoughtfulleader.com/257. There'll be a link to the Waking Up app there. On that app though, getting back to the topic here, I heard a poem called Just Beyond Yourself by a poet called David White. Now, I'm not really one for poetry generally, but on this occasion I sat and listened. Now the poem, and I'll put a link to the poem as well in the show notes page, and the poem, which I'll put a link to on the show notes page as well, speaks to going just beyond yourself. That is, stretching your boundaries and pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. Now, in the reflection, David explained the origins of the poem, a story where his friend challenged him to go against himself when he was playing it safe. Now, it's an excellent reminder that to grow and develop, we need to push ourselves at least a little, and that's what this episode is all about. So an obvious question to ask is, well, why should we get out of our comfort zone? And it's an interesting question because why would you want to push yourself out of somewhere where you're feeling comfortable? Well, yeah. The name says it all, doesn't it? It's comfortable being in the comfort zone. Now, in the comfort zone, we are in control. We know what to do. We've done it before, and there is little chance of things going wrong. And unfortunately, this means there is little chance of learning anything new either. Now, do you remember a time when you struggled and then succeeded at something? Chances are you were operating outside of your comfort zone at least for a little while. That is, until you became more comfortable because you'd done it before. You could look back on your previous experiences and remember that you did it last time, so you can do it again. And there's a distinction I'd like to make here when we talk about getting out of our comfort zone, and that is that sometimes we are put into situations where we are pushed outside of our comfort zone. When someone gives us a difficult project, or there's a company restructure, or when a team member challenges us, for example. So these are times when something external is pushing us out of our comfort zone, and this will naturally happen to us as we go about our work and our lives. Now, while this is useful, I don't believe it's the best situation to be in. Far better, in my opinion, is to push ourselves out of our comfort zone. Now, this means we initiate the push rather than having it land on us unexpectedly. And this means we can identify the times when we feel it is most valuable to push ourselves instead of it being left to chance. When we push ourselves, it means we can target the areas where we need or we would like to improve and to be able to prepare for the upcoming discomfort. So over time, your comfort zone will grow. It will now include all the experiences you've had before, as well as the new ones you push yourself into. Now, eventually, you will have experienced more and you'll feel comfortable in a greater variety of situations. And there's a related article I'd recommend you check out about 4 critical steps to grow your confidence in leadership. That'll be in the show notes page as well. So the question remains, when should we push ourselves and when should we take it easy? And for me, it's all about targeting the areas where we feel the least comfortable, that we feel will add the most value. I personally don't find much value in constantly pushing myself. Moderation is useful because it's exhausting feeling like you're out of your depth all the time. You know, you've probably come across this hustle culture where people are saying you should push yourself all the time, keep working really long hours, all that sort of stuff. You've got to work hard. You've got to keep working harder. I don't really subscribe to that. I think we can treat ourselves well, show up well every day by looking after ourselves and pushing ourselves in moderation, I think is a really good thing, because if you don't push yourself at all, then you're likely to stagnate. You won't really get to where you want to go. But anyway, here are some situations where I recommend you think about taking the leap and pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. The first one is in trusting your team members. Now, over my career, I found that there were occasions where I felt less than confident, let's say, about the abilities of my team members to get the job done. Now, they weren't necessarily bad team members, it was often my own personal insecurities that led to this feeling. Now, I often hear phrases like fail fast and be comfortable with failure spoken in organizations, but I don't necessarily see this actually happening in reality. The first thing to notice are any occasions where you feel uncomfortable either delegating work or letting your team members take the lead on something. These are key signs that you may benefit from pushing yourself in this area. This might mean stopping yourself from checking in on their progress for the second time today, or simply stopping yourself from doing the work yourself. So trust works both ways, and trust breeds trust. So we need to take a breath, let go, and show your team members that you trust them. And over time, you and they will feel more comfortable trusting each other, and your team will be more likely to show proactive behavior. Now, this might feel uncomfortable at first, but it's a good spot to try to push yourself out of your comfort zone. And if you go back to all the way to episode number 53, Why Trusting Your People is Your Best Strategy, that's a good one to listen to as well. I'll put that link in the show notes page. The second thing I recommend, an area where you push yourself, is in pushing back. Now, leaders don't do their best work when they are stressed, overwhelmed, or overcommitted. Now, this is a challenging area to navigate because we naturally feel compelled to prove ourselves and to be helpful by being a, in quotes, hard worker. Many leaders also take pride in taking pressure off their teams and shouldering the workload burden. Saying no or negotiating your workload is uncomfortable because people want us to say yes to help them out, so when we do the opposite, it can cause some tension. However, by taking this short-term action, you're creating a more sustainable long-term outcome. Instead of pushing yourself out of your comfort zone by taking on more work, consider pushing yourself by negotiating it instead. You might find that saying no is more stressful than saying yes, but saying no might be exactly where you need to be. And there's a related article, 5 Ways to Say No Without Getting Fired. That's in the show notes page as well, so check that out. The third instance where I think you should push yourself out of your comfort zone is when it comes to flexing your personal style. We all have our own personal style. Some of us are outgoing and talkative, and others are on the quieter side. Whatever the case, we often find ourselves in situations where we could benefit by being a little louder or quieter than usual. When you're quiet, speaking up with your opinion in a room full of loud people can be very uncomfortable. When you're loud, turning yourself down and listening more can feel uncomfortable for the opposite reason. However, flexing your style can help you to be heard or to help others find their voice. And changing your style temporarily to match someone else can be a good way to build rapport, no matter how uncomfortable it might be. And over time, you'll be able to adapt your style more easily when the need arises as you broaden your comfort zone. And if you haven't already, check out episode 224 about if you're a quiet leader, some tips to lead more effectively. For you quiet leaders out there, keep going and listen to that episode. And the last and fourth area where I think we should push ourselves is by being more visible. Now, one of the areas many leaders find challenging is raising their visibility in the workplace. This doesn't necessarily mean telling everyone how good you are. It might simply be about helping people understand more about the work that you and your team do. A question that comes up often is, can't I just do a good job? Well, of course, doing a good job is an excellent start, and leaders can often benefit from raising their visibility in the workplace, even if they're already doing a good job. Now, I've found that leaders who are more visible are offered more opportunities because people know who they are. They're also able to navigate the workplace more effectively through the relationships they build, and they're able to wield more influence with their stakeholders. The thing is, though, raising your profile is often uncomfortable. After all, it feels like we need to go around telling everyone how good we are. So instead, you might try sharing your knowledge by speaking at an event or town hall meeting or engaging in an industry panel discussion, for example. You might try acting as a mentor to more junior people in your organisation. You could try joining various internal clubs or volunteer groups within your company, or even starting one yourself if there aren't any. Or maybe you could initiate meetings such as coffee catch-ups or lunches to build your internal network with colleagues or senior managers in your organisation. And if you're doing a good job, being more visible is never a bad thing, but these sort of things can be uncomfortable. But I think it's one really key area to start pushing yourself out of your comfort zone in a leadership perspective. And the last thing I'll point out here is that if you are not sure where to start, what I would start with is focusing on your limitations. Now, many people talk about focusing on strengths, and that's a good thing to do. I agree with it. It's good advice. However, areas of greatest discomfort will be those areas where we have limitations. Perhaps we're scared of public speaking, networking, or dealing with certain people, for example. Now, watch for the areas of discomfort in your leadership role. That will be the areas where you find yourself avoiding things, holding yourself back, or worrying excessively. Now, in my experience, these are the areas where you'll get the most bang for your buck, where you'll gain the most benefit from pushing out of your comfort zone and therefore growing it. As David White tells us, just beyond yourself, it's where you need to be. So I'm interested in your opinions. Where have you pushed yourself out of your comfort zone and got great benefit from it? Share your experience with me and all the Thoughtful Leaders in the comments on the show notes page. That will be thoughtfulleader.com/257. And if you haven't already and you enjoy this podcast, it would be great if you could leave a positive review on your podcast app of choice. I really appreciate it because it helps me get the word out about the podcast. Thank you once again for listening. I really appreciate it. Keep up the thoughtful leadership and see where you can push yourself out of your comfort zone this week. All right. See you in the next episode.